Welcome to the Executive Director Roundtable. My name is Dave Miller. I am the Program Director at the Mississippi Alliance for Nonprofits and Philanthropy, and I use he, him, his pronouns. And we are thrilled to have you here joining us today for this incredibly important conversation. This is our inaugural Executive Director Roundtable. So a round of applause to all of you for being here for the first one. And to all of our panelists and guest speakers. We at the Alliance believe that not only do we want to build the capacity of organizations and individuals, but we also believe that it's incredibly important that we engage on important topics and that we drive important issues. And right now, our country needs to pay attention to a lot of voices that have been long ignored and silenced and not given the respect that they deserve. And so we felt that it was incredibly important that for our inaugural Executive Director Roundtable that we focus on women of color. So Mississippi has a history of amazing women of color, and we are thrilled that so many are in leadership positions today. We need more, and I am incredibly grateful and honored to be in a company with the women that we have with us today. And so I want to start off by saying that this conversation is being recorded. So if for some reason you have a tech issue and you have to go, or if another meeting comes in, because right now it's COVID and all of our lives are all over the place, and we are all operating at 1,000 miles an hour. So if you have to leave, do not stress. We will have a recorded version of this that will be sent out to you. And if you know other people who need to hear this and want to hear it and they couldn't make it today, they will also be able to access that. And I also want to frame this a little bit that, and we were, Portia, who I'll introduce in just a moment, had a great way of describing what we're about to do today. And that is that we want you all to feel like you are sort of spying or eavesdropping on a conversation in a coffee shop among leaders. We want this to be a comfortable, welcoming space where you really get to hear how executive directors engage with each other, they share their narratives, and that the formalities of a structured, very rigid panel discussion are broken down a little bit. And we really try to create a space where people are sharing their honest thoughts, and we can have a really meaningful and rich dialogue. And so thank you all for being here. We welcome you. And with that, I'm going to introduce our moderator for the day. We have the pleasure of being joined by Portia Ballard Espy. Now, I'm going to admit, she's got a long bio because she has done a lot of amazing things. And so don't shake your head, you know it's true. It's amazing. And so let me start off by saying that Portia is the Executive Director of the William Winter Institute for Racial Reconciliation. And before entering the role as the Executive Director, she was the Director of Community Building. Prior to that, she was the Chief Administrative Officer for the Children's Defense Fund for the Southern Regional Office, where she specifically focused, and they specifically focused, on the Cradle to Prison Pipeline campaign. She's also been the Assistant Director of the W.K. Kellogg Foundation's Mid-South Delta Initiative. Prior to getting into the nonprofit sector, she worked at the Royal Dutch Shell Organization, Entergy, Raytheon, and really focused on human resources management, labor relations, negotiations, mediation, executive coaching, team building, corporate giving, and community relations. So she knows what she's talking about. In addition to that, she has her BA from Southern University in Baton Rouge, an MBA from Loyola University in New Orleans, and she is currently a PhD candidate in public policy administration at JSU. Go Tigers! And Portia, I don't know where you find the time in the day. I need to learn from you how you get your doctorate done while doing everything else you're doing. So that's a special consulting coaching thing that I need, because I didn't realize that there were 30 hours in the day. So I got to find out how you made that happen. But it is incredibly impressive. And then some of you may also know her from some of her other affiliations. She's a member of the Mississippi Gamma chapter of the Alpha Chi Honor Society, Golden Key International Honor Society. She's been on the board of directors of Excel by 5, We Together, Creating Change. She's been a member and is a member of the Mississippi EITC Coalition, Lean In Mississippi, Dialogue Jackson. She was the Women of Vision by the Women's Foundation of Mississippi and one of Mississippi's 50 leading businesswomen by the Mississippi Business Journal, an alumna of the Leadership Mississippi and Leadership Madison County. So folks, Portia Espy, she knows what she's talking about. She is amazing. And we are honored to have her here moderating this important conversation. So thank you, Portia, for taking the time to be here, for doing this for us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dave, for that great introduction. I'm just humbled to be here with everyone, and I'm pleased to be able to be part of this panel and to get to know the three wonderful and dynamic women that you're going to hear from today. I think you're going to enjoy today, and I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce our three panelists so we can get right down into the meat of everything, because there's a lot to learn, I think, in the next few minutes that we're going to be together. Our three panelists are Mavis Creer, Sharon Jones, and Chalisa Presley. Mavis Creer is Executive Director of R3SM Inc., which stands for Recover, Rebuild, Restore Southeast Mississippi, which is located in Hattiesburg. Hurricane Katrina was the catalyst that created R3SM and its mission of providing long-term post-disaster recovery assistance, as well as addressing other community-related needs. The organization was recently recognized by Mississippi Business Journal as one of the top nonprofits of Mississippi. And Mavis is the founder of We Women Ministries, LLC, which empowers, enriches, and elevates women from all walks of life. She received her Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Mississippi State University and is being recognized this year by Mississippi Business Journal as one of its top 50 under 40. Mavis currently resides in Hattiesburg and describes herself as an advocate, survivor, inspirational leader, motivational speaker, mentor, entrepreneur, consultant, and best-selling author. She is also the proud mother of a teenage son, Jordan. Thank you for being with us, Mavis. Sharon Jones. Sharon is the founder and executive director of Parole to Pride, a reentry program founded to honor and memorialize both her mother and brother. She is a member of the Lowndes County Chamber of Commerce, Golden Triangle Business Women Carpenters for Christ Prison Ministry, Business Advisory Council for Community Counseling Services, and she serves on the Lowndes County Criminal and Addiction Task Force Board. She works in partnership with the United Way and the American Hotel Lodging Educational Institute. Also, for the past 23 years, Sharon has served as the operational and training manager for Best Western Executive Suites, and she is currently pursuing studies in sociology and criminal justice at East Mississippi Community College. Thank you for being with us today, Sharon. And finally, Chalisa Presley. Chalisa is co-founder and executive director of the Diaper Bank of the Delta, which provides emergency baby supplies, access to community resources, and advocacy for children and families experiencing poverty. Through a collaborative effort involving several community organizations, she also helped to create the Crossroads Baby Cafe and serves the organization as a baby cafe facilitator. As well, Chalisa is a lead facilitator with Clarksdale Baby University, certified lactation educator and counselor, certified Madriela Doula, lead certified child passenger safety technician instructor. She also founded Early Dawn Birthing Services, and she's a member of the National Association of Professional and Peer Lactation Supporters of Color, Young Professionals of Panola, Clarksdale, Coahoma County Chamber of Commerce, Sisters in Unity, Delta Breastfeeding Coalition, and Mississippi Birth Coalition. Chalisa attended Mississippi State University, majoring in industrial engineering. She has served as a fellow with the Delta Regional Authority's Delta Leadership Institute Executive Academy and currently serves as a Higher Purpose Co. Black Entrepreneur Fellow. Chalisa says her life goals are to help women across the Mississippi Delta and the state to make informed choices about maternal practices, encourage young parents along their parenting journey, and address the growing needs of pregnant and postpartum women experiencing insecurities related to housing and other basic needs. She is married to Julian Presley, the mother of Javon, Sierra, and Jensen, and the grandmother of Javon Jr. Chalisa is a member of Anderson Street Church of Christ in Marks, and her motto is smile and live a great story, because with God in front, all things are possible with faith, prayer, and obedience. So I want to welcome our three panelists, and I want to get right to the start of it. One of the things Dave was talking about in the very beginning, he mentioned the fact that he wondered how, you could do all of these things. I don't consider myself doing a lot of things, but, I am traveling a path. I have a purpose. And I want to know, I want each of our panelists to share a little bit with everyone here today. What is your journey, and what was your journey to becoming an ED, and who was your inspiration for leading you to this work? So we can start with Mavis.
My journey to becoming a ED was not, of course, scripted or expected. I probably would have, if somebody would have told me probably 10 years ago. I started 12 years ago with R3SM as a case manager, and I was only supposed to be working for 6 months for a pilot program. As you know, a lot of different disasters happened since then. I've taken a lot of roles, and I was able to learn a lot, from construction management to project management to supervisor roles, that led me to where I am today. Our agency has went through different ups and downs. I think we're on the upswing right now, and I'm very thankful. But it hasn't been an easy journey. A lot of people, especially coming from just a caseworker. I even remember one time when I was getting ready to be interim, and I was in a meeting with people who I respected very much, and someone said, she's a very fantastic worker and she does a really good job, but I really don't think she needs to be a director. And to hear that from people that I looked up to and that I thought very highly of,
Right.
It really could have crushed me, but it made me fight even harder, because I believed in the mission, which is to help people. So it doesn't really matter what other people think, or how other people feel. If I feel like God has placed me where I am and I'm doing the mission of the Most High, then that's all that matters. Who really has inspired me is my dad. He was a single father of 4 girls. He always told me, he said, you could do anything a man can do. And he said, sometimes you might even can do it better. And so, all the time when I was thinking about, what do I need to do? How can I make him proud? I remember him working 3 and 4 jobs and doing whatever he needed to do. And to see him now is full circle, to have a daughter who's a ED, and coming from my background, I just think, I honor him by doing my best each and every day.
Great. Well, I know he's proud, definitely.
He is.
How about you, Sharon? What about your journey, and who inspired you?
Well, I was a housewife and the only one left home while the children were in school. So I took a little part-time job and became a front desk clerk and began to go up the corporate ladder, which I was not planning to do. I just want to go to work and come home. I was actually forced into management and operational training, and I met a young man that was previously incarcerated and could not find a job. And that kind of reminded me of my brother that was formerly incarcerated and eventually was murdered in prison. So, thank you. So when I met him, I figured I'm going to give him a chance, because it wasn't any resources out there to help my brother transition. So giving him a chance, he stayed with me for 14 years. He never missed a day. Just watching the transformation from his being exposed to corporate America, and his transformation from selling drugs and doing things that he shouldn't, watching him transform into a great young man. Now he's married, custody of his children, just bought a home. He was my inspiration to just help people, so I just started helping, and then eventually that passion turned into this program, Parole to Pride. My inspiration was my mother. In 2007, we started the program with her giving us the curriculum and the professionalism of the organization, passed away. So in memory of her and in memory of my brother, that's how Parole to Pride and our first participant actually got started.
Well, I know they are both, your mom and your brother are proud of you, and I think everyone deserves a chance. And it sounds like the young man that you gave a chance to actually went on to do great things due to your support. Chalisa, let's hear from you.
Well, hello, everyone. Um, well, my story is almost a combination of both Mavis and Sharon. I was just loved hearing each of their stories and how I came to this work. Actually, uh, I actually started going to school and I wanted to be an engineer, but I got married, had children, and then I moved to the Mississippi Delta and I became a stay-at-home mother and I homeschooled and I breastfed and I became a resource to the community on breastfeeding because that was kind of something new. I breastfed in public, I breastfed everywhere I went, and I then took a job with Families First in 2000 in Clarksdale, and then I became a parent educator, and once again I was a resource. Everybody who had breastfeeding questions came to me. And after then, I started working with Delta Health Partners and provided parent education along with breastfeeding and parenting and birth. I became a Lamaze instructor and I began to enjoy the things dealing with birth, coming from a family that breastfed. I come from a community where everyone in our community breastfed and bleeding and natural birth. So I thought that was a norm, but it was uh, for me to bring that to this community and to bring it to the work that I'm doing was something that I truly enjoyed. So after working with Delta Health Partners, I began to see there was a need in our community that was not addressed. We had a meeting with different community organizations, and one of the things that was not addressed and not covered by any federal or state programs was diapers and wipes and feminine hygiene products. So
And they're expensive. Diapers are
they are
expensive.
very expensive, and that's
Yes.
something that a lot of is overlooked in our communities. Families
Mhm.
are struggling. We have all the safety nets for food and for other things, but we don't have those safety nets for the basic products that people need. And so, out of that meeting, me and my co-founder, Desta Ref, we we started and organized the diaper bank. At that time, it was called the Coahoma County Diaper Bank.
Mhm.
And when we started the Coahoma County Diaper Bank, I did not have any, idea that I'll be the executive director. Desta was awesome, and then she left. So, so
Ah,
here I was, and we, I began to take up the work of the diaper bank, and it was an amazing thing. And one of the things I want to share during the work was I began to understand at a deeper level the poverty um, and the needs of families that were experiencing poverty in our community. Our facility and our organization became a safe zone to families. They would come and they would exhale and share their struggles. And we became an organization that was helping beyond just diapers. There were so many other needs. And then as time moved on and we began to grow beyond Coahoma County, we had to change our name to reflect who we were. So we became the Diaper Bank of the Delta. And with that, we're beginning to share the needs of the families that are in our community, that in the poverty. And as a ED, it was something that I knew that I had to now learn some more things to help on the business side of the organization. I enrolled in an executive director course. So now I'm in school taking nonprofit management, which I should be done in December, and I'm excited
yay.
about that. Yes.
Woo,
So
woo-hoo.
even though I I have an engineering background. I went to school for industrial engineering. This was not something that I thought I would be doing, but I really enjoyed. And I understand that not only do I have to have the passion, I also need to have the background and the working knowledge of how to carry this organization forward. My inspiration has always been, and if you know me, you always hear me talk about, is my grandmother. My grandma, who now is about 89, is feisty. And one of the things she always has taught me was service. From the moment I was raised by my grandmother, and I remember growing up, and I would have to go and clean up. And Miss Sharon, I'm from Columbus, Mississippi. I wanted to put that out. I remember going in Columbus and having to clean up people's homes and just help the elderly in the community, because that was something my grandma required, that we take care of others. And then it translated when I got older to the type of work and the things that I did. And the second person I want to that I admire and I kind of led me to this work is Miss Kimmery Buggs of Reaching Our Sisters Everywhere. In the breastfeeding world, she became one of my mentors, and I really looked up to her, and she shared her story. And that was something that really inspired me to be where I am today. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thanks to all three of you. And Chalisa, your segue was perfect. You talked about passion, and each of you talked about the passion behind the work that you're doing, which is great. But you also, Chalisa, mentioned the fact that you can't just have passion. You have to have that business acumen. You have to have that knowledge of how to run a business, all the mechanics that go with it. And so, in thinking about all of that, passion aside, and I'm going to throw this out there. There's no order that you need to go in with regard to responding to this. You can just respond as you feel fit. What obstacles did you face in becoming an executive director, and what obstacles do you face currently? Because I know there's fundraising. Especially when you're creating an organization, you have to figure out all of the infrastructure needs, accounting, payroll. You have to do all of those things that maybe don't sound so fun, but you need to know how to do them. So what obstacles in becoming an ED did you face with regard to any of that? Learning the ropes or knowing the mechanics behind the scenes? Can you all speak to your own personal experience with regard to obstacles that you faced?
Well, I'll get started if you don't mind. One of the obstacles that has been a challenge for me, and I'm working through it, is managing employees. Managing employees and volunteers at the same time, especially during COVID-19. And the other thing is dealing with payroll. So I didn't have that working knowledge at first. So and I had to go and I took some courses just on employee management, because that was a struggle for me as an executive director. One of the other things was perception. People's idea of what executive director should be and how they should be. So I wasn't perceived as an executive director in the beginning. A lot of people didn't take me serious. So
why do you think that was, Chalisa? Why do you think they didn't take you seriously?
Well, some of it was because of I didn't have the education background for it. Some was because of my race. And one person even told me, "You just look too young," that's what someone told me. So I was like, okay, so I think it was a lot of things. I think a lot of people had their own different reasons. Some people had been working in the nonprofit field for a long time and they hadn't got to this status. And so I guess that could have been some of it. So those are some of my struggles.
Right.
I would like to piggyback off of what Ms. Presley said. with me, what was some of the obstacles when you go in a room, when you have conversations and you know you're speaking to them and you're telling them facts and you're giving them data and you're going about the mission, but it's almost like you have to fight even harder. You have to explain even more, and then you have to follow up as if you're dealing with somebody. Basically, I'm telling you this is what it is and this is what it needs to be. But the balance of, you don't want to seem too aggressive, but you also have to assert the mission and the work that y'all need to do in the community. And it's always kind of like you're having to juggle. I guess that's a good way to put it. Juggle of, do I want to I don't want to overstep, but I do want to assert myself and tell them this is what I need to do, and always having to go an extra mile, it seems like sometimes, when you're doing your work. With me, it's been a learning journey. Some of the obstacles that I had in the past, I really had to show them better than I can tell them. I know more. This is what I know. This is what I bring to the table. If I'm sitting in your presence, I have something to offer, and that probably that you're not capable or able to do. So that's the one thing. So before we even start the conversation, if I'm taking your time, it's something that benefits us mutually. So I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to make meetings just to make myself look better or look good. So that's the one thing that I try to, push out the way on the front end. It's been a learning journey. I had to really network a lot. And some people really always ask me, are you at another meeting? Where are you going? And it seemed like it was repetitive, but I felt like, I was on a certain level. But if people don't know this is what you're doing and you're serious about it, then they're not going to take you serious. If they don't feel like you're trying to learn, because like she said, I don't have a background as a director, but I had to learn really fast and really quick. And if I wanted to keep the organization afloat, then I had to learn everything. I had to learn accounting. I had to learn auditing. I had to learn being a supervisor all at the same time, because most nonprofits don't have extra money. So you have to take so many different roles in order for it to operate until it gets to a certain point. So you just have to learn all of that while also dealing with exterior challenges of people not trying to take you seriously because they feel like, why are you in that position? I've been doing it for years, but I feel like if that's what God has you, that's what it is. So I don't apologize for my position or anything like that. I'm very humble. But please know, if I come into the room and I'm dealing with you, it's because I'm trying to work for our community. And that's the only thing I'm here for. Some people I would prefer not to work with them because I know they don't want me there. And that's just the real honest truth. I know they don't want me there. I know they have prejudice and biases and different things of that nature. But guess what? In order for us to help our community and move forward, then you need me in your circle. And so I think now some people realize that even though I don't want to work with her, that's who's in the position to help me further what we're doing. And when they have that mutual respect and understand that even though I really don't want to work with her, but I have to, a lot of the other situations really fall to the wayside because they know we're doing it for a mutual, the mutual goal, which is to help the community.
Right. And you're saying, one of the things you have to learn is to put aside all of those and be professional, which is tough.
Yeah, you have to be professional. You cannot get your feelings involved when you're trying to move forward. And I think that's what a lot of people, they get hung up. Some people, have really told me that I couldn't do what you do. And it's because every situation, they get their feelings involved. And if you're going to be an effective director, you can't get your feelings involved with every situation. Every time somebody looks at you funny or you think they said something, after the meeting is over and they had conversations about you and it gets back to you and, it's not right, but do you let that stop the mission? Do you let your feelings and emotions stop moving forward? And that's really something you just have to ask yourself. Are you going to get hung up on how you feel? Or are you going to press forward? No, you don't let anybody disrespect you. But, you know, some things are just really not that important if you're trying to help people.
True. And Mavis, you mentioned that you had to get up to speed very quickly on things like accounting and payroll and back office stuff. How did you do that? Did you take courses? Did you read? Did you have
A lot of
mentors? How did you do
a
that?
lot of the classes with the Alliance, I was coming, I was going to the coast, I was going to Jackson. They really,
Same here.
you know,
Same here.
you know, I just told my board, look, this is what we have. So, you know, I'm going to be traveling a lot. So most of the time it was like, sometimes I was even in classes with the Alliance and other partners like 3 times a week, going from the coast to Jackson to wherever online. You just have to get it and jump in it. And you can't make any excuses. No, it's not fair that, you know, some people really, you know, might have left you hanging and didn't give you the proper preparation. But so what? That happens. So you just have to suck it up and move forward and study. And, you know, I remember my son, he was younger then, and I would tell him at night and different stuff, I'm studying. And he understood that I'm studying, even though, you know, I work a regular job during the day, but the development part outside of that, the stuff that I got from the meetings, I will study at night.
Yeah, it's just not 9 to 5.
There's no 9 to 5. Nonprofit work is 8 hours a week.
This is true, and it might sneak a 9th hour. You know, it's
Yeah.
it is definitely a full-time 24/7 endeavor. Thank you for sharing that, Mavis. Sharon, let's hear from you.
Well, I was an outsider. I'm originally from Queens, New York. So my challenges was fitting into a small community. Fortunately, my mother is from Columbus, Mississippi, and my dad is from the area. So they moved to New York, and that's where I was reared. So it's a blessing just to be here to do the organization here in their hometown. Business-wise was taught by my mom. She had a blackboard in our kitchen, and she taught us federal, state laws. She taught us how to carry ourselves, how to speak. I took some classes in New York at LaGuardia Community College for computer science because that's the direction I thought I was going to go in. When I moved to Mississippi, I surrounded myself and started an organization with people that had strengths where I was weak, as far as funding, as far as more of the business aspect of the organization, because I like for the participants to be trained professionally, like to be able to walk into a room, even though you may not have the skills, but you may have the appearance, you're able to talk, you're able to carry yourself very well. So I surrounded myself with a very strong board. The gentleman that I work for, he has multiple businesses across the state of Mississippi and outside. So he's one of the board members that help. And then another board member has his own business. And he's been in business for over 23 years. So I take their advice. My challenge, most of all, was trying to get people to understand that when you're dealing with a person that has not been exposed to business or have not been exposed to anything different, whether it be culture or diversity, that exposure inspires them to do better. So I had a challenge presenting that to people, that they had their doubts about felons. And when I spoke to people or had an engagement, you find that everyone was touched by the prison world, about somebody that may have been on drugs, went to prison for drugs, and it may not have been for selling, it could have been for using, it could have been for theft or whatever, but they all had experienced some family member and had not exposed them to anything different, to let them know that they can do something different. So presenting it to businesses to partner was my hardest struggle, because they didn't feel like they were ready, or they wouldn't work out, and they felt like what I was doing was a good thing, but it's really up to the individual, which I agree. So those partnerships with businesses was a little difficult, presenting it. But I'm very grateful to the Asian American Hotel Owner Association of the Gulf region, which actually uses my program to employ, to get them to feel confident working at the front desk or putting them in after the training, putting them in position. So those have been my, yeah. I'm surrounded by some very tough people that where I am weak, they strengthen me. If it's something I need to know from their experience, they can tell me. With the training part, I've been working since I was 14, and I've been doing office work since I was 20, and in the hospitality industry for 23 years. So that's the industry that I love, just helping people and dealing with people. So it's easy for me to train in that atmosphere. And when you train them in that type of atmosphere that they can be hospitable on any level, they can go from front desk to a cashier and still be hospitable, be courteous, and be able to work well with others. So my struggle was just fitting in a small town from a big city where everybody knows everybody, and you actually have to present yourself where you know you're here and you're able to do this work, and that you want to fit in and that you want to help the community. So that was my biggest struggle.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Sharon. And Sharon, you said something that I want to explore a little bit with all three of you, and that is surrounding yourself with great people. I think it takes a village to raise an executive director. It takes a village to do just about everything, because we can't do anything by ourselves. And if we think that we can, we're fooling ourselves. So you seem to have figured out how to surround yourself. You said you have a great board, and I want to explore that a little bit more. How did you attract those, and do you all find it difficult to find the right mix of board members and people around you, that village, to support you in the work that you're doing?
Well, the gentleman that I worked for, I've been with him for 23 years. So when he first opened this particular business in Columbus, I started as a front desk clerk. And from the training from my mother, she said, you always work as if it's your own business. So how would you like for people to work if they were at your business? So it was just a natural thing for me to tell him, okay, I think that you could be doing this. Even though he had a degree and he had multiple businesses, it was certain things that I was able to contribute to his business and build it from ground up. From that, when I went to first hire the gentleman that had a challenge background, he didn't agree with it. But since he knew me, he said, well, I'll let you try this out and we'll see how it works. Well, it worked well, 14 years. He was stable. We didn't have to worry about call-ins. And then I presented Parole to Pride to him. And I just want to say what Parole to Pride means, because a lot of times when people hear the word parole, they think there's somebody coming out of prison and having a probation officer. But parole has several meanings, and our meaning is, we took from the dictionary, was to lay down your hands of war and put up another means of living. And pride means your civic duty. You can be haughty as one pride way, but pride also has a meaning of civic duty. So that's what Parole to Pride meant. It means, and that's what I presented to him after the gentleman worked out for about 5 or 6 years. So then I told him what I wanted to do, and he joined. He thought it was a good thing, and he saw the success of this individual. Not everyone was successful. So I started looking for people where I didn't have strength to help kind of enhance me. I believe that iron does sharpen iron, and I'm not strengthening everything as an executive director, but starting from the ground up, I have hands in everything. So I kind of have some knowledge on what everybody does. Mm-hmm. One of the persons that I made a board member is my oldest daughter. She's a graduate of Ole Miss, and her professionalism came from a grandmother passed to a mom. She works for Invest Atlanta in Georgia, and so she goes all over the world and attract people to invest in Atlanta, Georgia. She was awarded funds to actually invest in Atlanta. And so she started this music thing to bring music into Atlanta. So working with her as her mom is real challenging because she has some knowledge that I need and I have some discipline that she deserves. So bringing her to the table was really good because I needed some aspects from diversity, which you don't see a lot of. And a lot of times when you train in those that are from the South that have never left or have been exposed to diversity, there's a fear there. So her helping me to help them cross that barrier of diversity, to let them know, you know, you're just the same, it's just a different culture, put it that way, instead of as a what they call a black and white issue. Everyone has their own culture, so you want to learn to respect each person's culture. So that's how we teach it. We did have one board member that was an attorney that didn't bring much to the table. I think he was just there to, I don't know, he mentioned he didn't have to do any, I lost the word. Well, he didn't have to, I think, what do you call, robo or something like that attorneys have to do, help someone that can't afford to
Pro bono.
go. Yeah. So he was there just purposely for pro bono. So we had to really think, and I talked to the board and they saw that his passion wasn't there, I would say. So we had to change a board member. And then just looking for the right person to be the case manager, just looking for the right person to be the accountant was of the help of the board members. So I'm taking a few classes on sociology and introduction to criminal justice, so that way I can enhance myself as I enhance the program. But just surrounding yourself with people that that has the strength that you don't have, that you trust, actually really helps any organization.
Thank you. Mavis, Talisa, any comments from you on how you surrounded yourself? Any difficulties with boards or?
No, when I became was transitioning into director like in 16, 17, the board members the ones that were still there, because you know we were in a low season, that's a good way to put it in the nonprofit world. The ones that were still on board really believed in the mission. So if they were still there, they were
that's
volunteering.
A good way to figure out.
You know, and it really was, and that's another part of the transition. You know, if you're a nonprofit and you go through a really rough, tight season,
right,
those board members that really don't have it in their heart, they start to jump ship. They don't want to come to meetings, they don't want to be engaged, but thankfully we have a turnaround. The board members now, you know, whatever I ask them to do, we have a church has really undergirded us. Our board president, Pastor Castillo, Steve Castillo, is over a church here, and he brought in some of his deacons that he thought would be good fits as far as volunteers. And also for fundraising, and then some of the other ones who had been on the board through those different seasons did stay. You know, some of the attorneys, you know, were very engaged, and then some of the other ones that were just community supporters that really saw the big vision for R3SM, and that, you know, you can't have a working nonprofit if you don't have a working board. Right. So, you know, and that's something that we're growing. I believe the advice I would give other people as far as if they're starting a nonprofit or trying to really, you know, do a shift is, don't just try to pick up anybody to be on your board, because that can be the worst thing you can do as a director, to get people, you know, on the board that just cause, you know, that are constantly in a struggle with, you know, because sometimes the board members fight amongst themselves. They won't have a problem with the director, but if you have a board group that for some reason, you know, because they come from different backgrounds too, they might just not work well together, and you're trying to be the director and trying to keep the peace, that's a whole different headache. So the advice I would have for other people with, forming a board and supporting the board is, be as transparent as possible. Even if it feels like the ship is sinking, tell them everything. So, you don't want them to be blindsided or feel like you didn't disclose everything to them. Just be as honest as possible, transparent. I probably tell too much, but you can never tell them.
I'm sure they appreciate that.
They do, because I feel like, we're in this headache together. That's why I tell them, if it's a headache, everybody's gonna have a headache, and you need to know what's going on. So,
Right.
I'm appreciative to have a board that's supportive, and the most important thing, they believe in the mission, which is to help people, and that's the bottom line. They believe in the mission.
Thank you.
I just want to share, we are a relatively new nonprofit, and we still with our original board of who just really love me, and they believe in the mission, and we're transitioning and adding new board members who actually have more skill set. But the board, they are very supportive, and they love the mission. Anything, and they're connected, and we don't have any infighting, but we're still working on board development. So I'm listening to everyone here and really taking in a lot. One of the things that helped with our everything was networking. I love networking. And I have been networking for the past 20 years. And I think that has really helped our organization, because it kind of laid a foundation for where we are right now. Because of the work I put in, as Melvin's talking about going to meetings, it just seemed like he was always at a meeting. My family said, "You going somewhere else?" That has laid that foundation to help help the diaper bank to be where it is today. And it also helped our board. We're working and we're transitioning and adding new board members who have certain skill sets. But like you said, they gotta have the passion, because a lot of the people that we did talk to that have the skill set didn't have the passion. They didn't understand what our true mission was. And they's like, yeah, it's a good thing, but they didn't have the passion for it. So that's been a struggle that we're working with our board, is getting people who have the skill set and the passion and the passion. And that's something that is a struggle, because we are dealing with babies, and you're dealing with babies. We're dealing with feminine hygiene products, period products. We're dealing with diapers. A lot of people don't understand that or have the passion to really work in that arena. So those are some of the things that we have done.
And that's a perfect segue. Chalisa, I think someone's going to think I paid you, because you have been perfect with segueing into each next area that I want to explore. And you talked about networking, and that's a key tool that I think everyone should continue to do, have in their back pocket. So my question to you all now is around advice to other women of color, especially younger women who aspire to be executive directors. What advice would you give them? What are some things that they need to be doing to get themselves prepared to take on that leadership role?
One thing I would advise younger women, or even women who might be of age but are not as further along in their career as they would like, is to understand that you are the brand. Even though I work for R3SM, I am the brand of the company. And some people, I don't think, get that on the front end, that everything that you're doing, especially in the public eye, ultimately will fall back on, so I am very mindful of that with what I do externally, because I am ultimately attached to the brand and the company that I'm working with. And I don't say working for, but I'm actually working with. So everywhere I go, they're going to hear about R3SM. We Women Ministries that just started. This is what we're doing. This is why we need you to partner in the community. So they're seeing my face. So if you don't understand that there's not a separation, you know, there's not a separation, because when they go back and look and ask and say, well, I met that lady, and somebody else says, yeah, that's Mavis, they're going to remember you, and then it'll segue into the company that you're working for. Also to, you know, be mindful that you can learn something new every day, to be humble, to be gracious. You know, I'm meeting a lot of other executives and entrepreneurs and women business owners, especially of color. And they're really surprised that I'm the age that I am, because they think I'm older. Because I've learned to listen and try to glean from experiences that they've had, you know, and to be open. I think I would give them that, to be open and to be willing to learn.
All great things, definitely.
I would also add respect. While you're networking, respect other people and help others. One of the things I learned a part of networking is don't always go there to get something. Be also willing to give. You know, when you're able to help someone else, it might not be your turn to receive yet, but they'll remember what you've done for them. So with everything that I do, I always ask people what they're doing, what are their passions, because one day you may need to call upon that skill set that they have. Respect them and be responsible, you know, with the knowledge of everything that they have. And I love the point where she brought out about being open. You got to be open to people. You can't be closed-minded and only have your way or your thoughts, because I learn something new every day. You know, I thought one way about something, and then someone bring up something, I'm like, let me think about that.
I agree. Thank you.
I joined. I'm sorry.
Sharon?
I joined organization. One organization that I joined was the Chamber of Commerce, to start networking, and networking for people to get to know me as an individual, and then they can understand more of what I was doing or trying to do. So I agree with Mavis, like I am the face of Parole to Pride. So I like to be in the background. I never wanted to be one up front. So that was really hard for me. I just like to help in the background. And then someone said, you are Parole to Pride, so you are going to have to get out there and show yourself. So I joined some very fabulous organizations, Chamber of Commerce, the Golden Triangle Women's Group. I joined the Northeast, I believe, Mississippi Women's Group for Tupelo, in Tupelo. So I started joining organizations and getting to know the people and understanding how the community operated, and also letting them get to know me as an individual and what I was trying to do. I wanted to say this as far as volunteers. Our organization, our participants have to volunteer. That's one of the requirements, so that they can give back to their community. And then volunteering in different communities, from joining these organizations, they find their passion where they can contribute back to the community. So I think that getting people to know who you are as an individual first, and then when they get to know who you are, they'll understand your passion because they know who you are. So just joining organizations, getting out there, meeting different people. And like Chelsea said, I don't always go to get. I go to learn with the chamber, just the partnership with them, just learning the business, learning what different people do, learning different organizations and how they function, enhances my ability to run my organization also. So I just think joining organization and meeting people that may be different, a diversity is very important, because when you dealing with something as a nonprofit, funding has been very generous to me, because my mom left some funds for me to continue on, and then the board members contribute because they believe in the organization. So I didn't have to do a lot of fundraiser as of yet. So I know that will be coming soon. But if it does, then people do know me as an individual, and they know what I'm trying to accomplish in the community as well as an individual. So I'm hoping fundraising will go smoothly.
Well, you have a village to draw upon when you get to that point. That's something that we all are in the midst of at all times. So you'll be in good company. I have two more questions, and I want to wrap us up soon so that we can allow for questions from our participants. But this next question, next to the last question, is what advice would you give to white women who want to advocate on behalf of women of color in their roles? Sometimes people say, I don't know how I can help you. You know, what is it that I can do in my role? So what advice would you give to an ally who doesn't happen to be a woman of color who wants to support you in what you're doing?
I'll say don't focus more on the racial barriers. Focus on the mission of the organization. That's the true help that Parole to Pride needs, the mission of the organization, not the, you know, because I know they said black and white, or that's with anyone, no matter what background you're from. If you can focus on the mission of the organization and promote that, and get involved in the organization to make sure that the organization is something that you have some passion for, or that is the mission that you want to be accomplished if it comes to a community, whether it be the diapers or helping a felon. If you want to do something in the community, I would just say focus on the mission of the organization and promote the mission. And that will help any organization that is a nonprofit.
And thereby helping you who's leading the organization.
Yes, right.
Okay.
I want to agree with that. I want to say, please share our mission in your circles, because you can touch people that we would never have their ear. But if you will speak on our behalf and share our mission, I think that would help a whole lot. Because sometimes, because of who we are as African Americans, women leaving the organization, we can't get in some rooms that you can get in. So share our mission, share our cause, and speak on our behalf. And not only speak, and as she pointed out, be seen with us, you know, be seen in our organization, be seen participating, volunteering, and acting, you know, walk beside us, be seen with us. I think those two things, share and be seen. Those, you know, I'm all about action. You got to do something. You can tell me you love me. You can tell me you like what I do. But if you don't do anything, I'm still wondering. So if you can actually speak on the behalf and do something, that's my spiel.
Great.
One of the other things that I did, I really put myself out there to, you know, to partner with and be a part of the Women's Business Association here. I started, you know, I was like, well, I'm with a nonprofit. Do I need to join? And somebody said, you need to if you're trying to extend your reach. And those women have been so supportive, so uplifting, and most of them don't look like me. But when they saw you know, my heart, and that my heart was in it, and, you know, that I was willing to give my all above and beyond, they really have jumped on board. And just within even 6 months, they gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I was like, wow. Oh, I was really taken aback. You know, they was like, make sure you come to the meeting. And that was just for me showing my heart and, you know, believing in the purpose. Just so, you know, I think sometimes we might have our barriers up and not want to step outside our comfort zone and go to the meetings where we might be the only woman of color. And that's something too that we need to, you know, really address. If you're not willing to step outside of your comfort zone and that silo, then you're only going to get so far.
Right.
as well. So I think with, reciprocal, and also she said as far as, when you're networking, not just trying to get something. I thought of something the other day, that volunteerism, volunteering really is the collateral of nonprofits. So what I try to do is, if I know somebody who has been supportive of me and they're having something they need volunteers, if I'm available, I'll go and try to recruit other volunteers to show them, hey, I'm not just, asking for something, but I want to support you as well. And in turn, a lot of the people who don't look the same as me, when I ask them to step up, that's what they do. They volunteer, they support, they push out our mission. So that's really the to piggyback what everybody else said, really, to let people know this is what we're doing, and we need help as well.
That's great advice. All of you given great advice, I think. And this question is similar to the one that I just asked, but what words do you have for those, who are ignorant of the needs of women of color trying to become leaders? So when you have young people who are aspiring to be an executive director, sometimes you have people who are not so young, but young at heart, who may just, they have decided my passion has led me to want to lead this organization. So what words of wisdom do you have for those who are just ignorant of, what the needs are of women of color trying to move into positions of leadership like those of executive director?
I would say accept the challenge. It brings character. In starting Parole to Pride, there was a lot of obstacles, there was a lot of differences, but it built my character. And sometimes in certain areas, we lack character. So if you're passionate about something and you accept, and I believe in what both of the young ladies are saying, this is something God has called me into. It wasn't pretty when I first presented it, because you're talking about people that are coming from prison with a challenged background in different areas. So I just wanted to be a little housewife, working and go home. So it built my character. So you need character in certain areas, and as you grow and mature, you need to be able to change according to society, which also helps your character. Mm-hmm. So accept the challenge. If it's something that you're passionate about, and if it's something that God has led you to do, believe you me, he knew those obstacles was going to be there. He knew those challenges were going to be there. He placed them there or allowed them to help your character building. So you just have to accept the challenge and have mentorship. For me was really good. Someone that I could sit down and talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is how I'm feeling, where you can get sound advice of which way to go and how to help you carry out your mission without giving up, because sometimes starting it is a struggle. Sometimes I was like, okay, I'm done with this, mm-hmm. And I had great people around me that said, you accepted the challenge, you're going to have to keep going. It's to help your character. You're going to have to toughen up. And so it led me to places that I thought I'd never be. And it's all because I surrounded myself with people, good mentors, that helped me keep going. And it helped my character, really.
So for someone who would be ignorant of what the needs would be, you would say the words of wisdom are to allow that person an opportunity to accept the challenge, to actually be in that role, and then put your arm around them, mentor them, right. Be part of the supports that they need. Great.
Because you're not always going to make the right decisions. Some things you're going to fail at. So failure is something that don't stop you. If you don't have it and you fail, or that didn't work out, you just keep on going. And
it's like part of the growth process.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
I would like to say just to allow them to grow. The director that I am today, being able to sit in a room with millionaires and to be able to converse with them and deal with them and hold no punches without a hiccup is not the same director I was 4 years ago. trying to figure out my way, and and having questions on, am I capable, or am I able to move forward? So just to be supportive and allow somebody to grow, and just to remember where you came from, because most of the people that I know did not, where they are today is not where they started. And just to remember, you had to grow to get where you are today. And it didn't happen overnight. And to just be, to just remember that if you support people and allow them to grow, that's the only way they will get to another level and to do better. And also to provide constructive criticism. If you're a director and you cannot take words of advisement, then perhaps that's not the job for you. Just to be honest, because ultimately you do have a board that you have to be accountable to, that has a fiduciary responsibility. So some people might want the position but might not be quite ready, and that will weed out the people who aren't ready right now, and that's fine, because if you're not ready right now, then you can still grow and develop.
Thank you.
Well, Sharon and Mavis took everything I was going to say. I had the last of constructive criticism, and she got it. But those are the wonderful things that both speakers have said. I agree with everything. You got to be able to receive constructive criticism. And on the other hand, you got to allow people to grow and walk in their calling. It may not be pretty when they first start, but that may be their gift and what their calling in life is. Give them opportunity and give them chance to walk in that and to grow, because they're just like a seed. I just started gardening, so I like these garden metaphors. So it's just like a seed when you first plant it. It's not pretty. And if you ever see it when it's developing and coming out of the little shell, it's not nice. But as it grows and it gets the proper nutrients of the proper care and the proper encouragement from those that they surround themselves with, it grows into something very fruitful and something that you can harvest later on. So I love that.
I love that metaphor. I have a black thumb, so I can appreciate it fully and embrace it. But thank you, and thank you. Thanks to our three panelists, and I do want to open it up for questions. And Dave, I can turn it over to you. And if there are any questions, we can kind of field those questions amongst our three panelists.
Wonderful. Incredible wisdom, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. It's a lot to take in, but I really appreciate it. So as Portia said, we'd like to open it up to all of you in the audience world. If you have questions, feel free to enter it into the chat, or you can turn on your mic. And what I would say is, if there is another person speaking, if you will mute yourself, so that way we avoid that background interference. But we would love to open it up and have a conversation with you all. So with that, who wants to go first?
I'll go first. This is Alicia Jones, and on the Gulf Coast. And basically my question is, because I'm a project director, and then I'm actually took the time to do something that God laid on my heart probably almost 10 years ago, and I'm starting my own business. But basically my question for you is, thank you. My question for you, ladies, is how did you navigate through the biases and the prejudices in the beginning and maybe even now? And I'm not only talking about the ones that you were getting, but also the ones you were putting out, because we all have biases and prejudice, and we stereotype even when we don't know it. So I want to know, how did you navigate through that, receiving them and send them out into the airwaves? Because one thing I do agree with Chalisa is that everything comes with growth. So when you know better, you do better. But I want to know, how have you navigated through those, or how are you navigating through those?
One thing that
I'm from New York, so I had to navigate through a lot. Before dealing with the hospitality industry, and I'm used to diversity, so I think it may have been a little easier, because you're going to have those challenges. Everybody is not going to. My biases for the South is that, you know, they weren't going to be real receptive, whether it was Black or white, because they had a totally different view, totally different culture, and they do. But I was raised by a Southern mom being in New York, so when I got here, it was hard because everybody knew everybody. Everybody had already established their friendships. So I had to fight through those barriers from my own race. I was more receptive by my outside race. So it was a lot of Asian descent and white people that have helped, and those that did not. To me, I had to take it as they were not a part of the journey for me. So I could still, you know, show. I come from a Christian background, mother evangelist, grandfather a Southern Baptist preacher, and so they instilled love, and that love, was challenged very much so. So it actually built up in me to accept those doors that was open through any person, whether they be white or Black. They were a part of the journey, and those doors that was closed with whatever biases led me to a different door. And some of those challenges really helped me out a lot, because now that I look back on it, if I'd have went that route with this particular person or allowed this person to assist or help, it wouldn't have came out to where I am today. So you just have to learn who you are and learn to accept. Some people are going to change over the process of time after they see that you have accomplished what God has set you out to do, and then they understand it more, and then some will not. So it's just what is instilled in you and what you need to be doing as far as what God has given you to do.
I want to add, be consistent. You got to be consistent, because as you grow, if you have a mission and this is what God is giving you, be consistent and be true to your purpose. And when you do that, people, it may take them a while, like she said, but once they see that this is who you are, they see, hey, Shalisa, she love babies, she love mamas, is everything she do, you know. And after a while, they say, this is your go-to person. This is the person. This is the organization that's going to help you. You got to be consistent. In the beginning, just like Sharon. Now, I'm from Mississippi, but I'm from Columbus, Mississippi, and I moved to the Delta. I married my Delta sweetheart. Met me a Delta man at Mississippi State, and I came over. I didn't know anything about the Delta, and it was a culture shock for me. And everybody here was tight knit, and they had their families and their organization they supported. It took a while, but once I was consistent and I did the things that I needed to do with my mission and my organization, I began to be recognized for that. So I want to add just consistency.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question from anybody or comments?
I've got a question. This has been fantastic, ladies. Thank you so much. And as I've been listening to you all, I've been thinking about, you know, some of the challenges we share as women and women leaders. And my question is, how do you overcome some of that negative self-talk that can creep in? Some of it we've been taught from an early age. Some of it, you know, has come to us in different forms. Mine always shows up about 4 a.m., which is a real pain in the neck. But I feel like as women, we share some common challenges, and I find myself sometimes when I'm a brand new ED as of January, and I find myself sometimes thinking, you know, about a situation or a problem. How would I approach this if I were a man? Because sometimes that's a completely different mindset, and I feel like as women, sometimes we carry some doubts that have been fed to us from a very early age. So I'd love to know how you overcome some of that.
That's a really good question. That's something that I've had to deal with as far as self-doubt and you know, how how I feel about myself, and that's a continuous journey. That's one of the things with the new ministry that I started, We Women Ministries, is to really try to get women on track and understand, who you are as a person, your purpose, and how to move and push forward. So every day I would ask God, what am I supposed to do on this day? So everything else that's happening, that happened yesterday and that might happen tomorrow, and how I feel, that really doesn't matter as far as the specific things that I need to do this day. And so sometimes I even have to say to myself, maybe this is what we need to do on this day. And all that other stuff that might be going on, that might not be uplifting, that might not be encouraging to myself, how can I work on that? But I don't need to let my emotions overtake what I need to do and focus on the specific goals that I need to do on that day. And ultimately it all lines up. And it's not an easy journey. It's, even some of us who've been doing it for a long time, you have doubt, especially when you're dealing with people, and that's people that might not appreciate who you are and your gifts and your talents. But the only thing you need to know is you're fabulous and you're awesome and you're doing a great job, and you can only do the best that you can do. And you can just learn from there. Even if you make mistakes, it doesn't matter. You just keep pushing forward.
And I would say you're not a man, you are a woman. And that's something that I had to deal with, the dominancy of men. But I'm not a man, I am a woman. So mentorship comes from some men that I highly respect, that when I have doubt about what I'm doing, they can actually enhance me to do what I want to do in a better way, or give me a different perspective. And that comes from being open. I have a very wonderful husband that when I have them 3 a.m., I'm up reading or up doing my devotion. I just wake him up with some thoughts that I have. And he really helps guide me with that. He'll tell me if it's, well, I think that's a good idea. Maybe you want to try this approach, or because I'm dealing with men. And then you don't want to be motherly either, but you want to be able to do your job and do it well. And that comes from great support and great people surrounding you that can either help you do it in understand a different perspective of what you're trying to do.
I want to agree with Sharon. My husband is my balance, so I agree with that. And in the work that I do work with moms and babies, so it's more of a women's led movement. But when you're going and talking to funders and working on board development, I look around at some of the other nonprofits that are led by men, and they have all male boards, and they're just pouring money in there. And I'm like, how in the world they can do that? And it is a struggle sometimes to see, how they can get some of the support and things, and to kind of figure out how you can navigate that. But realizing that you are enough and that you can do what you need to do.
Chalisa, you have proven again that you are the perfect seguer in a long time. So with that, I'm going to ask our next question that comes from Nancy, who's joining us from Seattle. So I'm glad that our conversation can reach far and wide. Thank you, Nancy, for taking the time to be here first thing in your morning. So her question is, or her statement and question is, I'm joining you from Seattle, and I am so grateful to learn from you all. Here, nonprofits are predominantly white-led. If you are joining an established organization rather than one that you built, what kind of work would you want folks to do? Oops, that just moved. What kind of work would you want folks to do to prep that white culture to make the situation least harmful to a new leader of color?
I found that a lot of times the lack of knowledge about people of color and what we've always been in our community doing things just like anyone else. So I think the lack of knowledge of what a Black or African American person is trying to do as an individual. One thing that I find that if people are not exposed to the Black culture, they have their own perception of the Black culture. And it can't be by media or TV shows. It has to be by involvement of an individual with the Black culture, understanding who they are. And with them understanding who and the community that they come from and what they're trying to do, you can educate others accordingly. So it's not about the perception of what you see everywhere else. It's about you as an individual getting involved with the community, educating yourself about the Black community to understand how they operate. So you can bring your ideas to make the operation of what they're doing better, enhance it. But I find that that's basically a lot of what people don't have is the knowledge of the Black community. They have a perception. So we need people to have knowledge and get involved and come and see how we talk to people that are doing things in the community. Like as far as what we do with Parole to Pride, a lot of some people haven't been exposed. They haven't had the exposure that I had in the Black community, which makes me have to transition them to a different way of thinking, whereas you could come in and help us enhance that even more by understanding the Black community.
Incredibly powerful advice. Yes.
I also want to share, be a sister, be an ally. If you see an African American Black sister who is in this position and you see that she is meeting challenges that are because of her race, and you don't support that, speak up and support her and be an ally for her, and speak up when there's negativity, speak up when there's things that are done, say, hey, you know, that's not right, and be there for her during those times, because she's gonna need some help. She's gonna need some help ultimately. So be that ally, be her sister. I want to use the word sister versus ally. Be that person who's there for them.
Wonderful. With that, folks, I think we need to start to close out. Please don't leave yet. I want to see that number of participants stay the same. I'm watching it. First off, let me say thank you to not only all of the participants in the room today for taking the time out of your day to be here, but thank you, Mavis and Sharon and Shalisa, for being willing to be vulnerable and be willing to share your narratives with us. These are not always the easiest conversations. They are not always the most comfortable, but we believe in community, and we believe in exactly what Sharon, you said, which is about giving people the space to share their reality and make sure that all of us are getting a fuller understanding of who's around us and who's in the room and who do we need to help and how can we help. And so thank you all for being part of that. And thank you, Portia, for being willing to help us have this conversation. It really is important. I want to share a couple of things. So first is, you'll notice in the chat, if you, it was scrolling a little bit fast there for a second towards the end, but Portia shared a link to an article that would be incredible for all of you to read. It's worth a read. Also, Mavis, Chalisa, and Sharon, if you want to pop the links to your websites, so if people do want to get involved or connect with your organization, they can. As the program director, I would be remiss if I did not shout out the Alliance's upcoming trainings and events. As was mentioned, you know, we are engaged every day in trying to make sure that we are supporting organizations in Mississippi, and frankly, if somebody wants to join us from Seattle, you're welcome to, or any other state. So here is our August training calendar. Almost made it through this webinar without a bark. So this is our August training calendar. We would love to have some of you join. Obviously, you know how to register and the link, because that's how you got here. So definitely take advantage of that. And then I want to end on a quote that means a lot to me. I went to school in California, and Maya Angelou came to my university and spoke, and I've been touched by her words ever since I was a teenager, older teenager. And one of my favorite quotes is, "We need joy as we need air. We need love as we need water. We need each other as we need the earth we share." And today I feel joy. I am so honored to be around all of you and to be part of this work so that we can make sure that our community and our world is one that everybody can share and thrive in. And that includes love, and it means that we need each other. And so thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for making Mississippi stronger, and I wish you all very well. And if you need anything, the Alliance is here. So thank you for coming out today. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And please wear a face mask. Be well, everybody.